We like to believe we are in total control of our lives. We pride ourselves on our logic, our careful planning, and our rational decisions. But human history and our own daily mistakes tell a completely different story. Welcome to the brutal reality of human nature. The truth is, we are not rational creatures driven by intellect. Instead, we are deeply emotional beings, constantly governed by hidden biases, deep-rooted insecurities, and powerful feelings that distort our perception of reality. We react first and justify our actions later. In this episode, we unpack the absolute foundation of human behavior, the law of irrationality. You will discover how your own mind plays tricks on you, how to spot the hidden emotional currents that drive the people around you, and how to finally break free from the invisible chains of your own reactive programming. Strip away the surface illusion, open your mind, and prepare to master the ultimate decoder of the human script. This is Chapter 1. Chapter 1. The Law of Irrationality. Picture this. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. You're sitting alone in your room, wrapped in total silence. But inside your head, there is an absolute storm. The blue light from your smartphone reflects off your face as you stare at your bank account balance. Or maybe you're obsessing over an investment that's been draining your peace of mind for months. You feel this tight restlessness in your chest, a sudden wave of anxiety, and you ask yourself a question that every single one of us faces at some point. Am I doing the right thing, or am I making the biggest mistake of my life? When we look around, everyone seems to be doing something different. One person is dumping their entire life savings into the volatile stock market. Another is putting every penny into real estate. Meanwhile, someone more traditional is buying physical gold, locking it away safely in a vault. From the outside, it's easy to judge. We look at them and think, wow, those people are completely crazy. We assume they're either foolish for taking such massive risks or naive for letting their cash rot in a low-interest bank account. But tonight, let's address a profound truth. No one is actually crazy. The reality is, we like to believe we are completely logical, highly educated, and driven strictly by facts. But the ground truth, humans are deeply emotional creatures, and our feelings almost always pull the strings behind our decisions. The real danger isn't that we experience emotions. The danger is that after reacting emotionally, we look back and try to rationalize it by telling ourselves, I was just being realistic. See, irrationality doesn't mean you've lost your mind. It simply means your feelings are quietly steering the ship. And when emotion takes the steering wheel, your intellect is reduced to a mere passenger, left to justify whatever chaotic route you take. Think about how your brain works. It essentially operates at two different speeds. There is the slow, deliberate mind, the one that patiently analyzes data, checks facts, and looks at the bigger picture. And then there is the fast, impulsive mind, the one that instantly judges, slaps on a label, and forces you to react. This fast mind is completely fueled by raw emotion. When you are emotionally charged, your brain stops looking for the truth. Instead, it aggressively hunts for evidence just to prove your current mood is right. Imagine you're at work and your manager praises a project but forgets to mention your name. It's just a casual passing comment. The rest of your team is smiling and you force a smile too. But internally, a sharp spike of resentment hits you. They just took credit for my hard work. Now, it's entirely possible it was an accident, or maybe they were just in a rush. But your ego, mixed with a hint of insecurity, immediately chooses the darkest storyline available. You open your laptop, your fingers fly across the keyboard, and you draft an email. The words might look polite on paper, but the underlying tone is laced with passive-aggressive frustration. You hit send, and hours later, when the dust settles, the regret kicks in. Whenever we let our immediate emotions dictate our actions, we consistently lose three vital things: our timing, our accuracy, and our connections. We react at the wrong moment, we mistake a fleeting feeling for an absolute fact, and we burn bridges before even trying to understand the other person's perspective. The law of irrationality isn't here to make you perfect, it's here to make you brutally honest with yourself. It asks you to pause, step back, and realize that your initial emotions might be misleading you. When you learn to observe your feelings rather than immediately acting on them, the emotional wave no longer drags you down. It simply washes over you and passes away. You stop letting your impulses script your destiny, and you finally become the true master of your mind. Now let us dig deeper into the mechanics of why we do this. Why does a sophisticated modern human brain default to such self-destructive patterns? To understand this, we have to look at the invisible forces that constantly warp our reality. These are our cognitive biases, the internal filters that color everything we see, hear, and feel. The first and most powerful filter is what psychologists call the confirmation bias. When you are upset, hurt, or even overly excited, your brain forms an immediate conclusion. For instance, if you believe a friend is ignoring you, your fast mind instantly locks that in as the truth. From that exact moment onward, your brain goes on a selective hunt. It actively looks for clues to validate your pain. A delayed text response, proof. A subtle shift in their tone, absolute proof. But what about the fact that they might just be overwhelmed with work or going through a personal crisis? Your emotional mind completely ignores that data because it doesn't align with the narrative you've already chosen. We don't look for the objective truth, we look for the truth that makes our feelings feel justified. Then comes the conviction bias. This is the dangerous illusion that the sheer intensity of your emotion makes it real. We often tell ourselves, if I feel this strongly about it, I must be right. If you feel a deep, burning anger towards someone, your brain convinces you that your anger is a direct reflection of their malice. But intensity does not equal accuracy. A loud emotion can be completely wrong, just as a quiet truth can be entirely accurate. When you operate under conviction bias, you lose the ability to question yourself, and that is precisely when the most catastrophic mistakes are made. But there is another layer to this trap, and it happens every time we open our social media feeds. Think about how you feel when you're scrolling late at night. You see a classmate from years ago posting pictures of their new luxury car, or a colleague celebrating a massive career milestone. Instantly, you feel a tiny pinch in your chest, then another, and before you know it, a heavy wave of bitterness washes over you. You might tell yourself, "Oh, I don't really care about show-offs." But your actions tell a different story. You start scrolling faster, your mood turns sour, and suddenly, innocent comments from other people start to annoy you. A friend's genuine success begins to look like arrogance. A relative's harmless question feels like an interrogation. What just happened there? Your emotional state was triggered by a single image, and it completely hijacked your perspective for the rest of the night. You didn't realize it, but you let an external digital trigger rewrite the emotional code of your entire evening. This brings us to the core issue of human friction. We are constantly fighting enemies that don't exist. In moments of high emotional tension, your real enemy isn't the person sitting across from you. It isn't your boss, it isn't your partner, and it certainly isn't the stranger on the internet. Your true enemy is your own sense of urgency. It is that desperate, clawing instinct inside you that screams, "You must react right now. You must defend your honor this very second." This urgency is a survival mechanism left over from our primitive ancestors. Thousands of years ago, if a predator appeared, waiting to analyze the situation meant death. You had to react instantly, but in the modern world where the threats are psychological rather than physical, that same urgent reflex is what ruins careers, shatters relationships, and destroys mental peace. To break free from the law of irrationality, you must train yourself to create a gap, a buffer zone between the stimulus and your response. The next time you feel a sudden spike of anger, a sudden drop in confidence, or a wave of bitter envy, do absolutely nothing. Do not send the text, do not draft the email, do not make the comment. Force yourself to wait. Let the biological chemical reaction in your body cool down. because emotions are like waves, they peak with incredible power, but if you give them just a little bit of time, they are legally bound to recede. When you learn to sit with your discomfort without reacting to it, you reclaim your power. You transition from being a reactive puppet of your environment to becoming a conscious observer of your life. You begin to see people not as threats, but as flawed individuals who are also fighting their own internal battles. And in doing so, you don't just protect your peace, you conquer the chaotic nature of the human mind. To truly master the chaos of our inner mind, we must expose the deep-seated illusions that keep us trapped in irrational loops. Most people live under the false impression that they are entirely self-aware. They believe that when they make a decision, they have carefully weighed the pros and cons, analyzed the risks, and chosen the most logical path. But if we peel back the layers of human psychology, we discover that what we call logic is often just a highly sophisticated defense mechanism designed to protect our ego. Consider how we handle our failures and mistakes. When something goes wrong in our lives, whether a business venture fails, a relationship falls apart, or a career opportunity slips through our fingers, our immediate instinctive reaction is to look outward. The brain immediately starts constructing a protective shield. It tells you that the market was bad, the other person was toxic, the system was rigged, or it was just a terrible stroke of bad luck. This is the classic blame bias. Your fast-processing mind cannot handle the sudden drop in self-esteem that comes with admitting a personal error, so it immediately projects the guilt onto an external target. You create a beautifully logical narrative to explain your failure, and you believe it completely. But this narrative is not the truth. It is simply a psychological painkiller. By refusing to look into the mirror and analyze your own blind spots, you guarantee that you will repeat the exact same mistake in your next venture. Another powerful force that quietly warps our judgment is the appearance bias. We are visual creatures, deeply influenced by surface-level impressions. When we meet someone who is highly charismatic, attractive, or soft-spoken, our brains automatically assign positive traits to them that they might not even possess. We assume they are trustworthy, competent, and honest simply because they project a pleasing image. Conversely, if someone is awkward, blunt, or dressed poorly, we immediately dismiss their insights, no matter how valuable they might be. Con artists and master manipulators understand this flaw perfectly. They don't win your trust with superior logic. They win it by manufacturing an appearance that perfectly aligns with your desires and expectations. They wear the right clothes, speak with the right level of confidence, and mirror your body language. Your emotional mind is completely blinded by the spectacle, while your rational mind is silenced. By the time you realize you've been misled, the damage is already done. You didn't fail because you lacked intelligence. You failed because you allowed your emotional reaction to an appearance to override your critical thinking. Then we must look at the illusion of group bias. As humans, we possess a primal need to belong to a tribe. Thousands of years ago, being exiled from the group meant certain death, so our brains evolved to conform to the collective will. In the modern world, this manifests as an intense psychological pressure to adopt the opinions, beliefs, and biases of the social groups we belong to. Whether it is a political ideology, a corporate culture, or an online community, we quietly align our thoughts with the crowd to avoid social discomfort. When your group expresses outrage over an issue, you feel a sudden surge of outrage too. When they celebrate something, you feel compelled to celebrate. You convince yourself that you genuinely share these views based on your own independent thinking. But the reality is much darker. You are simply riding the emotional wave of the collective. The moment you adopt a belief just to feel safe within a group, you surrender your individuality and enter a state of functional irrationality. To build a genuinely bulletproof mindset, you must learn to recognize these biases the exact moment they enter your consciousness. You must develop what psychologists call the observing ego. This means splitting your awareness into two parts during moments of tension. One part of you experiences the emotion, the anger, the pride, the insecurity, while the other part calmly stands back and observes the reaction like an outside scientist. When someone criticizes your work, instead of instantly snapping back or writing a defensive reply, your observing ego steps in and notes, "Right now my heart rate is rising. I feel a sharp sting of pride. My brain is trying to find a flaw in this person just to discredit their opinion." The moment you name the emotion, you detach yourself from it. It loses its power over you. You are no longer the anger. You are simply the person observing the anger. This shift in perspective is where true mental freedom begins. You stop being a reactive machine that can be easily triggered by a single comment, a bad email, or a piece of bad news. You begin to see through the strategic maneuvers of manipulative people, and more importantly, you see through the deception of your own ego. You achieve a rare state of quiet clarity, a sharp, unshakable focus that allows you to make decisions based on objective reality rather than temporary emotional turbulence. This is the ultimate goal of understanding human nature, to conquer the illusions of the self so you can finally navigate the world with true wisdom. Once you develop the ability to observe your own mind, you begin to notice a deeper, more subtle pattern of human irrationality. It is the illusion of control. Most people move through life believing they have a firm grip on their destiny. They create meticulous 5-year plans, make strict financial projections, and assume that if they just follow a specific formula, reality will perfectly bend to their will. But this belief is often tested when unexpected chaos hits. A sudden market crash, a sudden health crisis, or a sudden betrayal from a trusted partner can shatter that illusion in a matter of seconds. When humans realize they cannot control external events, their fast mind triggers a state of deep anxiety. To cope with this discomfort, we often default to a psychological trap known as the superstition bias. We start looking for magical shortcuts, or we place absolute blind faith in charismatic figures who promise us guaranteed certainty. We look for someone, anyone, who can tell us exactly what the future holds, just so we can escape the painful reality of the unknown. But true rationality requires you to accept a hard, uncomfortable truth. You cannot control the wind, you can only adjust your sails. The only thing you have absolute control over is your inner state, your focus, your response, and your mindset. When you stop wasting your emotional energy trying to control things outside of your perimeter, you unlock a massive reservoir of mental clarity. You stop panicking over every unpredictable shift in the environment, and instead you focus entirely on executing the highest quality decision in the present moment. This brings us to the final, most dangerous illusion of all, the illusion of superiority. Deep down, almost every human being harbors a secret belief that they are fundamentally better, wiser, and more ethical than the people around them. We look at the mistakes of our peers and think, "I would never be that foolish." We look at someone trapped in a bad relationship or a failed business and assume it's a direct result of their lack of character. This quiet arrogance blinds us to our own flaws. It creates a massive psychological blind spot, making us completely vulnerable to the exact same traps we judge others for. True emotional mastery begins with radical humility. You must look into the mirror and accept that under the right amount of pressure, stress, or isolation, you are capable of the exact same irrational behavior as anyone else. You are not immune to greed, you are not immune to envy, and you are not immune to fear. The moment you discard the illusion of superiority, a profound shift happens within you. You stop judging people, and you start analyzing them. Instead of getting angry at a colleague's toxic behavior or a friend's sudden coldness, you look past the surface presentation. You ask yourself, what internal bias is driving this person right now? What deep-seated insecurity are they trying to protect? When you view the world through this lens, your relationships completely transform. You stop taking things personally. You realize that when people lash out, It is rarely about you. It is almost always an outward projection of their own internal chaos. This realization grants you an elite psychological edge. While everyone else is reacting, shouting, and burning connections in a state of emotional urgency, you remain perfectly still, watching the chessboard of human nature with absolute precision. To bring this foundational law to its absolute peak, we must understand how to transition from a state of reactive chaos into a state of high rationality. True rationality is not about suppressing your emotions, nor is it about turning yourself into a cold, unfeeling machine. Emotions are a beautiful, necessary part of the human experience. They give life its color, its passion, and its drive. The goal is not to kill your feelings, but to completely change your relationship with them. You must learn to hold your emotions in your hand, examine them with total curiosity, and decide whether they deserve to influence your behavior. Think of your mind as a grand kingdom. For most of your life, your impulses, fears, and temporary moods have acted like rebellious warlords, constantly hijacking the throne and making reckless decisions that leave your kingdom in ruins. Becoming rational means taking back the crown. It means establishing your intellect as the ultimate ruler, while your emotions serve as valuable advisors that provide data but never hold the final vote. When you achieve this level of mental discipline, you unlock what can only be described as a quiet, unshakable power. You no longer look at the world through the fractured lens of your ego. When a crisis hits, while everyone else is panicking, pointing fingers, and making the situation worse, you possess the rare ability to pause. You step back, breathe through the initial wave of urgency, and look at the cold, hard facts. You analyze the variables, anticipate the long-term consequences, and execute your strategy with absolute focus. This is the exact mindset that separates the legendary creators, leaders, and thinkers from the rest of the crowd. They are not smarter than everyone else. They have simply mastered the art of outweighting their emotional impulses. They know that a temporary feeling should never be allowed to dictate a permanent destination. As we close this first chapter, carry this ultimate truth with you. Your mind is the most powerful tool you will ever own, but only if you are the one operating it. Stop letting a single bad text message, a corporate oversight, or a stray social media post dictate the trajectory of your days. Recognize your biases. Embrace radical humility. Create that vital buffer zone between what you feel and how you act. By conquering the law of irrationality, you don't just survive the chaotic nature of the world, you rise above it. You secure your inner peace, protect your vision, and finally step into the full power of your potential. The mirror has been held up, the rules of the game have been exposed, and the steering wheel is finally back in your hands. Episode 1 now ends.